Spring Web MVC. Okay, Spring Web MVC is a framework and it's an open source. Open source means it's a freeware. Everyone can use it. Just we need to add the jars and we can use it. Okay, and still now we developed only console application, database application, right? Now we are developing which application? Web application by using Spring MVC framework, which is a part of Spring framework. Okay, and Spring Web MVC is one of the efficient and high performance open source implementation of model based controller. That means MVC based framework. Okay, so this is advantages is there. So like how you develop the servlet application, same way we can develop web application by using Spring Web MVC. And in Spring Web MVC, model with controller framework is designed and around the dispatcher servlet. And this dispatcher servlet is take caring the all the request. Like yesterday we discussed, right? Login application, registration, all the request is coming to here only dispatcher servlet. And dispatcher servlet is act as a front controller design pattern. Means front controller means whatever the requests are coming to our application, and dispatcher servlet is take caring about it. And processed next level is sending to the appropriate controller, like login controller, registration controller, like that. And these are the advantages we are getting. And a very, very important point is an interview point and understanding this Spring MVC way of execution. What is the flow of execution of Spring MVC? Okay, this is a diagram you have to buy at it. Okay, so or else you can understand. Okay, this is a very important. This you can I share this diagram and just you can follow it. Okay, and yesterday is we learned the which one login application, right? Same thing here also there. Request. First one is request is coming. From where is request coming? From client. Means from HTML file. Once the request is coming to this one, same web.xml is there. In web.xml, which servlet we are configuring? Dispatcher servlet we are configuring only one servlet. But yesterday's example, what happened in web.xml? Multiple servlet you are configuring, right? What is the problem? There is no front to controller design pattern. But Spring MVC is added which one? Front to controller design pattern. Are you following? Respond. Only 3 numbers. Clear, right? As of now, what I'm telling. Hello. Yeah. So whenever the request is coming from this any request from the client or from HTML file, it's coming to where web.xml only. In web.xml, which servlet you are configuring? Dispatcher servlet. Okay. So all the request is coming to the dispatcher servlet only, and dispatcher servlet will sending to the handler mapping. So say first step is done. Your request is come from the HTML file or the client, and the request is dealing through the dispatcher servlet. Are you configuring dispatcher servlet in web.xml file? Okay, in Java side, web.xml file is a very important. Okay, web.xml other name is what? Deployment descriptor file. Correct? So deployment descriptor file, we need to configure dispatcher servlet. Just we have to configure. No need to develop. Okay, already Spring is developed and given it. Just our duty is just to configure the dispatcher servlet. And next step, this dispatcher servlet, and the request is coming for what? Whether slash login or slash register or slash update profile or slash forgot password. Like many requests are coming, right? Or get my profile. Is any one of request. Okay, all request is coming to the dispatcher servlet, and dispatcher servlet is communicated with the handler mapping. So handler mapping, what is doing with this? What is the client request is coming? That actually who will handle? Who will handle the proper, the correct person? The correct controller name is written by handler mapping. Okay. Once the dispatcher servlet is requesting to the handler mapping is written the actual controller name. Okay, actual controller name, and dispatcher servlet is written forwarding to the exactly controller. See here, multiple controllers are there, right? So this diagram is representing what is a controller. 1, 2, 3, 4, so that you can write the n number of controllers. And handler mapping is written, for example, is a login. This request is for login. Then this handler mapping is written the login controller, and dispatcher is forwarding to the which one, login controller. So this first one is a login controller, second one is the registration, third one is the update profile. Like that, we can take the n number of controllers. Okay, clear? And how we are communicating by calling the handle request method. In a handle request method, we can pass the request object and response object. Same like servlet. HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response. Okay, clear? And once you got this controller class, whether is a login controller, right? And this login controller is forward to the which one? Service layer. So here also multiple service boxes are there, right here, like login service, registration service, update profile service, like that. We can take the n number of service classes. Okay. And now our scenario is login service. Now login service is communicated with the DAO, right? Next, so up to step 5 is clear. Any doubt up to 5? If you're not giving a response, I'll wait until you give the response. Are you following? Others? Shivaras, okay. Others? Up to 5 is clear or any doubt? I will ask the question once it's done. Okay. So after the fifth step is done, is communicating in the service layer to which one? DAO layer. Okay, this is the direction is down here, should down come here. So DAO layer. And DAO layer, what is communicated? Here also multiple DAOs are there. Login DAO, register DAO, update profile DAO, like that, right? And this DAO is communicating with the database. Okay, step 7. Okay, and once your database communicating, database is written some data, some response, and same response is giving the back to the which one? Service layer. Okay, this direction is different here. Okay, now service layer same response is giving back to the controller, and his controller is returned the which one? Model and view object. Model and view means this controller is returning the some data and along with the JSP file name. Okay, that is forming the model and view object. And now dispatcher servlet again is communicating with which one? View resolver. So what is the view resolver here? So what view means you want to return the HTML file or a PDF file or XML file. What view is you want to return once this request is done? So that is decided by view resolver, and it's written some HTML file, and that's written the view name .html file or .jsp file is written in back. And next, dispatcher servlet is communicating with which one? View is done. The what is the model means data, business data, was successfully registered, or some message you are giving, right? The data is sending to the view. View means is preparing actual view, what you're displaying on the output on the second next page, success phase or error phase, right? That view is model object is passing to view and preparing the view and giving the back to the again dispatcher servlet, and dispatcher servlet is returned back to the client. This is the 16th step. Clear, right, everyone? This is a very important for the project development and interview purpose to learn this Spring MVC. Yeah, Pooja, can you explain this with reading the steps?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, start explaining.
So earlier we are doing servlet administration. We have directly configured all the servlets which are there in the web.xml directory. Here what we are doing, whenever we are getting request from the client, here we have another layer, not a layer, but here the call goes to dispatcher servlet, and then this dispatcher servlets sends the request to the handler mapping, where that handler mapping is going to provide us which controller needs to be called. If our request is with respect to the sign up, sign up, then the handler mapping is going to give the sign up controller. So respective controller, it is going to return actually to the dispatcher servlet. And this dispatcher servlet will take the request parameters and then pass it to the respective controller. From the controller there could be many services actually. From the controller the call goes to the service layer, where actual business logic is being defined. And from the service layer, it is connected to the DAO, to the database actually. Yeah, and then after connecting with the database, it is going to do the operation, and then database DAO is going to send the response to the service, and then service is going to send the response to the controller, and the controller is going to return a model and view form actually, uh, whatever the business data is there, and whatever the output we are willing to share to the end user, that response is going to share to the dispatcher servlet. And then dispatcher servlet is going to communicate with the view resolver.
Okay. Next, 1450 step. Can you hear me? The Pooja, are you there?
Sorry, I could not hear you, sir. What was that?
Next step, 14 is done, 13 is done, right? View result, then 14, 15. Completed your explanation?
Yes, yes, it is done.
Okay, understood the Sai Kumar and Shivaras? Yes, Sai, you understood? Can you explain now? Explain this way of based on numbers 1, 2, 3. So if you are getting doubts, so you can read the steps. Spring MVC flow. I'm giving the theory notes also documents. Just to go through this one, read loudly. Read from here. Start. Handler. Mm. Mm. Next, fourth one. So this is the section. It's done, right? So that whatever is theoretically you read that is given the diagrammatic representation. So if you remember this one and you can easily answer in interview, can you explain the Spring MVC flow? Is a common and basic interview question. It is okay. So you should remember and we can tell while writing, while develop this code only, draw this diagram and we can explain. So without seeing this document. Okay.
Sir,
Mm.
could you please explain? I mean, from 11th point. So from controller, we are getting model and view, right?
Mm.
Object, we are getting model and view object. Now, how it is sorting dispatches outlet?
So view means what we see. Model
Yes,
means data,
data.
business data, what response you are giving. Whether success, in our scenario, what is that login, right? Login is success or login is failed. Two possibilities are there, right? The data is binding in with a model object. And view means the view, what view we are giving, whether the HTML file or JSP file or pre-marker, we are given the document, right? Or PDF file also we can return sometimes. Sometimes reports are downloading, right? When I click on the link, that time we are returning the PDF view resolver. We have the different view resolvers are there, and is communicating the view resolver is written the particular view name. What is like login success.jsp. Okay. Now it's got the login success.jsp page. It's written by a view resolver. And then dispatches are like again communicate with which one view and login success.jsp what data you want to write and what data you want to display. Okay, and we have already model object. This model object is sending to the view and the view is preparing based on this model and return back to the dispatches servlet, and dispatches servlet is returning back to the client. So dispatches servlet is following the which design pattern? Front controller design pattern. Front controller means whatever
Sir, could
request.
you please spell it out? What controller is that?
It's
What
a
controller design
design
pattern?
pattern. We call it as a
Front control. Okay.
front controller design pattern. Okay, so as per this design pattern, whatever the requests are coming from the client is not communicated with the actual controller. Okay, if he's performing to the actual controller, what happened? We need to write multiple controllers and there is no proper handling. Like yesterday we discussed the servlet application, right? Login, registration, forgot password, update profile, correct? Like that we are write the many controllers and each controller is giving the response back to the client. So that is there is no proper handling, right? So to avoid that problem, Spring MVC is following the which design pattern? Front controller design pattern, and it's accepted every request and giving the response back to the every client, and internally it's taking care of this process. And we can see one application example wise you can understand how this all the things work out. Okay.
Sir, can we consider model as Pojo?
Model as
Pojo
yes,
class.
yes, yes,
Can we consider like that?
yes. Also means our business data, business object. Yes. So anything model means what response you're giving, what content you are returning, whether it's object or is any string data. Okay. Yes, it's also we can consider POSO class. Any question?
No, sir. I'm good.
Suraj and Sai Kumar. Clear? It's very important. Are you there, Suraj? Why? So next, how you develop this application in Spring MVC by this pattern. So in our application, what we can develop only things like we have to develop only which one? This controller class and service class and the EVO class. Rest of the things already is given in Spring framework. Just we need to configure in XML file. One how many XML files required? One is a web.xml file is required, and another one is a spring.xml. In the spring.xml, what is that? We handler mapping, view resolver, controller class, okay, and service DAO. This we need to configure and develop. Only these three things we have to develop. Rest of the things is already given by Spring framework. What is to do? Just we need to configure handler mapping, view resolver, and dispatches. Just to what should I do? Just to configure in the XML file. No need to develop the logic further. So our requirement is what? Our business logic, our which custom controller, service DO. Only these three parts we have to develop. Rest of the part is already taken care by Spring MVC framework. Clear? Clear or any doubt? So now how we can develop this application wise, we can go through that next level. Okay. So dispatcher servlet is like a simple servlet class only. Okay, I given here. The dispatcher servlet class is presented in which one? Spring framework. Okay, it's a pattern. It is the child class of which one? Framework servlet. And dispatcher servlet follow the front controller design pattern for handling the client request. It means that whatever request comes from the client, this servlet will interpret the client request before passing the request object to the actual controller. Okay, so internally, what is our hierarchy here? So dispatcher servlet internally extending which one? Framework servlet. Framework servlet internally calling which one? HTTP servlet bean. It's a framework given. Next internally is calling again HTTP servlet. You worked on right all HTTP servlet. You know how many methods are there? Do get method, do post method. Based on the put, delete. We have multiple methods are right. Based on the client is giving the request, either coming from the get method, post method, right? Put method. Yes or no? Internally using HTTP servlet. Internally HTTP servlet is calling which one? Generic servlet. So means Spring framework internally using which one? Servlet API only. You know already, right? Already you developed the servlet application. Now it's easy now. Clear? And in web.xml, how we can configure? So what is the servlet configuration? You know, right? First in web.xml, root tag servlet. Web app, that one servlet we have to write. Each servlet has which one? Servlet name, unique name, dispatcher, and servlet class. We can give the fully qualified name. This is given by Spring framework. This is called servlet registration. And you know what is the use of load and startup time? It's an interview question. What is the use of load and startup time? Tell me anyone. Puja, do you know this? Give me with voice pieces. Again, I need to check.
No, sir. No, I don't know.
Shivaras? Sai? So in servlet, what you learn? In servlet class, you develop the application, right?
Yes, we have developed. We have used annotation approach actually. We haven't written any XML while working with servlets.
Okay. So it is also important. XML also important.
Yes, sir, but we did not learn that actually.
Okay. Today you can practice on simple XML.
Sure.
So yeah, servlet is called which one? Lazy loading. Lazy loading means whenever request comes, then only servlet lifecycle will start, right? But what happened when the first request is come and the servlet lifecycle is start, then is executed which method? Service method. But the first request is taking more time, and second request onwards directly execute the service method, right? Service method or do get, do post method. But even though first request also you want to execute only service method is giving the quick response to the client. That's the reason we need to configure load and startup time. Okay. So whenever configuring the load and startup means whenever our application is loading, then only this servlet class is run startup. That is the meaning of load and startup time, and is very important. And it is providing the which one? Early loading instead of the lazy, because default servlet nature is lazy loading. Lazy means Whenever the request comes, then only servlet lifecycle will start. But if you use these things, what happen? First user get a time, okay? But we have to give the response back in a very milliseconds gap, right? Not seconds. It's a milliseconds gap. We need to give the response. So that is the reason we need to configure load and startup pair. Clear? Next one, servlet mapping. The servlet mapping is what is the servlet name, what is registered here, the same servlet name we have to write, and after that URL pattern. So URL pattern means, you know, right? So in the HTML tag, form tag, we have to write something, a login that or something that we are writing, right? For example, class login. So this is a which one exactly matching URL pattern. And something patterns, pattern related something what we are giving slash we are giving star dot do. Star dot do means is a pattern, pattern related mapping. Star means anything that do. It's a request is coming from the client, then this URL pattern will execute. So how the servlet will execute? Whenever the request is coming, and that first we checking the URL pattern. What is the URL pattern? Something, the star means anything that do, yes, is URL patterns matching. Then this servlet name will execute. What is this servlet name? Dispatcher. And same servlet we need to register, yes, is registered. Then this servlet class will execute. This is a way of execution servlet. Even annotation also, this is the same thing. In annotation also you are giving the path, right? Yes or no? URL pattern. The pattern path is matching. Then based on this path match, then only this servlet will execute. Clear? Dispatcher servlet, how to configure and what the request is coming. And I given this description as well. Okay. And by default here, one note is important here. Spring, while initializing the dispatcher servlet, will looks the Spring configuration file. Spring configuration file means we need to configure this all the things like handler mapping, controllers, view resolvers. This also we need to configure. So by default name, what is taking? What is our servlet name? Servlet.xml file is taking by default name. What is our servlet name? Dispatcher. Dispatcher servlet.xml file we have to download. Okay, default name is taking, but I want to give the some other name, spring.xml or some different name. So then what should I do? We have to configure that one. In web application context, we have to configure. Okay. So here I given the steps here. For the web component bean declaration, based on the above configuration, the file name it looks for the dispatcher-servlet.xml. Now load all the bean declaration and create a web application context container with those beans. If you are giving the instead of a different name, what is the default name is reading? Dispatcher-servlet.xml files default is loading. But if I give the different name, so what should I do? We have to add this context config location. So here I give it here. So what is the here? And we need to mention. Servlet is the same thing. In servlet class, we have to write init param. Init param means initialization type. Parameter, what is that? Spring-servlet.xml file. And where is available? It's in a web folder. So web folder is a mandatory, right? All the related jars we are storing and all the secure data we are accessing from web folder. Web means web info. And we can change. What is the conclusion? The default name, dispatcher servlet, default name is reading dispatcher-servlet.xml file. But I don't want to use that predefined name. I want to give my custom name, like a spring.xml file or spring-servlet.xml file. In that case, we should configure inside a servlet class of which one init param. Inside a init param, we need to write param name, context config location, and param value is web spring servlet XML files. Okay, and we can write the load and startup. So which one? For early loading. Clear? This is the dispatcher servlet default nature. Understood? And how we configuring? Just now we discussed here.